This is a new world. Politics, personalities, and culture from the Turkish perspective. In this episode, the Ataturk Lecture, Embassy Jazz, and Election 08. All this and more in this edition of A New World.
Hello again. I'm Lincoln McCurdy, President of the Turkish Coalition of America, and welcome to the second installment of TCA's A New World Politics, Personalities, and Culture with the Turkish Perspective. First, I would like to provide some insights on the recent elections. From the Turkish-American perspective, the 2008 elections were a milestone because, number one, Turkish Americans raised or contributed over $1 million for congressional, state, and local candidates. Two, for the first time, there were two proactive Turkish-American political action committees known as PACs, the Turkish Coalition USA PAC, based in Washington, D.C., and the Turkish PAC in Houston, Texas. The two PACs contributed nearly $150,000 to congressional, state, and local candidates. Over 80% of the candidates supported by the two PACs won. Anything above 50% is a significant achievement. Regarding the outcome of the election for members of the Congressional Turkish Caucus, the caucus had an all-time high of 80 members going into the election. After the election, the total has dropped to 70. 4 members did not seek re-election and 6 members were defeated on November 4th. With the election behind us, the current mission of the Turkish American community is first to get back to the previous all-time high of 80 members and then to work towards increasing the membership to 100. This is definitely an achievable goal if Turkish Americans across the country work together and follow up with their representatives in the U.S. Congress and encourage them to join the Turkish caucus. Since the election on November 4th, the caucus has already picked up 2 new members. Let me highlight the activities of the Turkish Americans in North Carolina. Due to their efforts in the past, 9 of the 13 North Carolina congressional representatives are members of the Turkish caucus. Turkish Americans in North Carolina have now started working in getting the 4 remaining members of the state's congressional delegation to join. Their goal is to become the first state to have 100% of the congressional representation as members of the Turkish caucus. The Turkish community in Texas has also been active in asking their representatives to become members. If Turkish American communities in other states are just as active, then we will have no problems in reaching the magical number of 100 members in the Turkish caucus. In commemoration of the 70th anniversary of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk's passing, a special Ataturk lecture was delivered by Professor Heath Lowry titled, "Were Ataturk Alive Today?" Dr. Lowry is a Mustafa Kemal Ataturk Professor of Ottoman and Modern Turkish Studies at the Department of Near Eastern Studies at Princeton University. Here is a brief portion of the comments delivered by Professor Lowry.
I must begin these remarks with a disclaimer. I am today, and have been throughout the past 45 years, an unabashed fan of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, founding father of the Republic of Turkey. Long before I was honored by my appointment as the Ataturk Professor of Ottoman and Modern Turkish Studies at Princeton University in 1993, I had always been an admirer, indeed a devotee of Ataturk. Indeed, it is fair to say that my interest in Turkish history began in 1965 when I met the historian Enver Ziya Karal, and then a few years later, Ismail Hakkı Uzunçarşılı, and was regaled by these great scholars anecdotes about their personal encounters with the father of their country. I remember in particular listening to Ismail Hakkı Bey, who had been tasked by Mustafa Kemal with the writing of a multi-volume work on the early Ottoman centuries, and been chosen as a member of parliament so that he would have the economic means to do so. Relate how one day, when a particularly weighty matter was scheduled to be discussed in parliament, he had set aside his work to participate in the debate. When Mustafa Kemal saw him seated among the deputies, he approached and inquired as to his reason for being there. Ismail Hakkı Bey replied that as a parliamentarian, he thought that he should be present as the issue under discussion was of importance. Mustafa Kemal replied, "Hocam, hocam, my teacher, my teacher. Our job is to make history, and yours is to write it." Stories of this nature were among my first inspiration to learn more about this great leader and the country he had helped create. While today my scholarly interests have taken me back in time to the founding of the Ottoman state in the 14th and 15th century, I have never quite lost my fascination with the father of the Turks. It was for this reason that I was honored to accept the invitation to address you this evening. As the Republic of Turkey enters its 86th year, it may not be inappropriate to recall that its founder, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, only played a role in the first 15 years of its life. Stated differently, he witnessed only the first 18% of what today comprises the Republic of Turkey's history. By way of contrast, my own Turkish experience, which began in 1964 when I first arrived in the village of Bereketli, a mountain settlement in northwestern Anatolian province of Balıkesir, to begin a 2-year stint as a Peace Corps volunteer, and continues until today, spans 44 plus years, that is, over 50% of the country's history. During my most recent extended stay in Turkey, the first 8 months of this year, I often had occasion to shake my head in amazement at the transformations that have occurred in the course of my own Turkish experience. I vividly remember my excitement in 1964 when 2 new soft drinks appeared one day in a corner buffet in the provincial capital of Balıkesir: Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. Only the names they were known by then, in keeping with Turkish pronunciation, were Joja-Jola and Pepsi-Jola. From there to a Turkey where today there is virtually an ATM or Starbucks on every corner in the country's major urban centers, the transformation has been mind-boggling. During my recent sojourn, I often had occasion to wonder, if I feel myself a stranger in today's Turkey, what would Mustafa Kemal Atatürk think if 70 years after his untimely death on November 10, 1938, he were to return to the country he almost single-handedly created?
As many of you are aware, the United States has just recently sent a new ambassador to Turkey, the Honorable James Jeffrey. Upon his arrival in Ankara, Jeffrey made a short statement in Turkish in which he told reporters that he was pleased to be back in Turkey. He was quoted as saying, "Turkey and the U.S. have been friends since 1923, and they have also been allies in Korea and in NATO for 58 years. We have a special alliance which is important for Ankara and Washington. I am very glad to be back in Ankara and Turkey." Jeffrey has served in Turkey in 3 positions and speaks Turkish. He was selected for the Ankara post due to his vast knowledge of Turkey and experience in Middle Eastern affairs. Prior to his departure, the Turkish Coalition of America held a dinner in his honor at the historic Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. The ambassador was unable to speak to the press prior to being sworn in as the ambassador. However, we were able to speak with a number of the attendees at the event, the first of which is Congresswoman Jean Schmidt, representing the 2nd Congressional District of Ohio, followed by the former Turkish ambassador to the U.S., Dr. Faruk Loğlu.
I'm very honored to serve in Congress, and one of the things I learned very quickly was that the United States has many friends around the world, including Turkey. Turkey is not only a friend, but an ally in the Middle East, and one of the people that we can count on for strategic partnerships in the Middle East is our ally Turkey, and I look forward to continue to working to make sure this relationship continues in the positive direction it has been for so many years.